Good morning and welcome to my podcast. I'm Bob Pace, and you've reached uh, the podcast of how to fight CPS and stop taking our children. That's the child protection system. They are been very corrupt and dishonest and lying, and they do traffic children and they do alienate children. I'm so sad to tell you that. You probably already know that, but anyway, this is a live podcast. Uh, Transmitting on YouTube, and I'm using the StreamYard uh, application. Um, this is an interactive podcast. I'd like to get into how they interact with this podcast. Uh, the first way is just by being in this room and listening. That's one way to interact with the podcast. Uh, Now, you don't have to say anything, and hopefully, you can hear something that will help you. Okay. I'm also texting some of our regulars because sometimes they may not get the message there. Now, a second way is to type in comments. So when you're typing in the comments, make sure they are CPS questions, Child Protection System questions. It's very important that we focus on the child protection because that's what you hear. You right now have a case or did have a case or going to have a case, and it's going to be really bad because you be in this room because you care about your family and your family's been disrupted. It's been disrupted. And so hopefully I'll be able to share with you what I too have had the CPS experience. I've been fighting them for 15 years. 3 years they had stolen my children or trafficked my children into foster care. And it was really traumatic. I got back two, but lost one. I'm a family man. I'm a father of six. I have three olders and three youngers. I've been married 31 years. And this happened at the worst time of my life. I just lost a job. I was age 65. And for 5 years, I kept getting these complaints from CPS. They were by a layperson. I didn't know who the layperson was, but it was actually my family members. My wife's mother, sister, and brothers were constantly every week saying complaints that weren't true because they wanted their children. They thought if I lose my job, that I wouldn't be able to take care of our three young children. But that wasn't the case. Never once did I not have food for my children or clothing or shelter or all the basic things you needed. We had to tight up things expense wise when I lost my job. We no longer could afford the Disneyland passes that we had and things like chips and sweets and soft drinks. We had to for till we only had to buy the basics. So, but more about the comments. Please show your name, city, state, or country and be complete with your case. Now, what I mean by country is I do have about 13 countries that have text messages into me. and I'm open to everybody. I'm found on Facebook, Fight CPS with Bob Pace. And so these people have texted messages about the child protection system. Now, some of the countries have been Bangladesh, India, New Delhi, India, and then I go over to Africa, and I have the South Africa province. One of the provinces there had texted in Mozambique, which is above South Africa, across from Madagascar on the coast, east side of Africa. Rwanda on Central East Africa, which unfortunately went through a terrible tragedy in 1994 where 1 million people were wiped out and 400,000 females were raped. I've also had on the west coast in North Africa, Liberia. And that's interesting because the guy has texted numerous times. His name is Archie, and he's involved heavy in scouts. Now, I'm talking about the Boy Scouts, but the Boy Scouts aren't Boy Scouts because they have girls in them, so they're called Scouts. Anyway, he's been really interested in what we do to protect our children and the things that he's come across. Then I go up to Europe, and I've had England, Scotland, and Wales. That's the United Kingdom, and they have called in about issues that are very similar to ours. I've had Sweden and Denmark, which surprised me. And then across the pond, I've had in North America, Canada, both sides of Canada. And then I've had all the 50 states, including Washington, D.C. They mostly have called in or texted, and I've talked to over 500 people about their cases. And then down in and south of the border of Mexico, I've had one gentleman, he actually called in looking for his daughters in Louisiana. And then going down further south to South America, I have Guyana. And they're on the coast above Brazil, east of Venezuela. And they have a coastal town called Georgetown. But they've texted in too. Then across the Pacific to land down under, I've had Australia. So I've had different parts of the world all text me about their CPS questions or issues. And when I say CPS, I mean the Child Protection System. Each system has different acronyms in each state. Like in California, it's called the California the Children Protection Services, Children Protection Services, CPS, just like CPS. But when I say CPS, I mean everybody, the whole systems across the 50 states. I know in Arizona, it's the Department of Children's Services. And why do I know Arizona? Well, there's an example of a social workers or workers that had a horrible thing that they did. There were 8 women, white women, that worked in Prescott, Arizona, and they put on pink T-shirts, and on the front of the T-shirts, they had it stenciled, professional child kidnappers. Professional child kidnappers. Then on the back, it says, do you know where your children are? Do you know where your children are? That message really sent shivers a lot of parents because they prayed around in Walmart, Target, Costco, Best Buys, all the big stores, sending a weird message to the general public. They were caught, they were fired along with the director of the Department of Children's Services, DCS. That wiped out their whole department. There was only one person left to handle protecting our kids from neglect and abuse. So that's one example. Now, when I say complete with your CPS case, try to start off and tell me what your family is made up of. Are you husband, wife? A boyfriend, girlfriend? Are you lovers? Are you partners? Are you single parents? Are both parents involved? Also, what are the children? The ages and the sexes. So the 3 boys, 3 girls, young boys, whatever. And then on top of that, Are the parents the same for all the children? Meaning, do they have different moms, different dads, or whatever it is? And then after that, you tell me what the allegations were. Was it abuse, neglect, or both, or with some details about it? And then how were the children acquired? Did you give them up? Did they come to your home? Did you bring them down? Um, those are kind of the things. They have a warrant. You need um, know those kinds of things to do in there. So after that, you need to put down where you're at in your case. Where you're at. You're at the beginning, the middle, whatever. So be complete with your child protection system case. Now, a third way is to be a guest. You can be a guest on our podcast by sending an email to our show producer. Her name is Grace. She works behind the scenes, making sure the podcast is good. Make sure I need any help, keeps me in line, and so forth. Now, all you're going to have to do to be a guest is schedule it, and that sends an email. So you pick one of my 14 podcasts. I'm on Monday through Sunday. I'm on at 10 o'clock in the morning Pacific Standard Time for 1 hour, except on Sunday. I'm on at 8 o'clock in the morning Pacific Standard Time. I'm on the evening at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for 1 hour. So you pick a Sunday morning show, a Friday evening show, a Wednesday morning show, a Monday evening show. And you send that in an email to grace@vincentwdavis.com. Grace@vincentwdavis.com. That's grace@vincentwdavis.com. And she will contact you, give you the link to StreamYard, help you, tell you how to be a guest. There is no smoking or eating on the podcast. Also, it's important that you don't use names of judges or names of the courts or those kinds of things, or names of children. We want to protect them. So that's the third way. Now, the fourth way is calling in. Now, there's my phone number. I'm ready to take call-ins. And you can reach me at 626-698-0990. My phone's live. I will talk during the show hours. I cannot talk before or after the show hours. I'll leave you a message to call me back during the show hours, but that's the time you talk to me, is during the show hours. And again, that number is 626-698-0990. Now, some of you are wondering what that yellow and orange number is on my podcast. Well, that's the number of the guy that produces this podcast. His name is Vincent W. Davis. He's a law firm. Vincent W. Davis and Associates, the name of the law firm. Anyway, that's the number to his office. 888-888-6582. In fact, that's my rule number one. You always should have an attorney. You need to get an attorney. And so you may say, the court-appointed attorney is all I need. No, you can use them, but I need to tell you what's going to happen. Being court-appointed, they're very cheap. They don't get paid very much. They're not very knowledgeable. And then also, they're not going to fight for your case. That's the worst part. They're not going to fight. They look for the easiest way. They're friends of the court, of the other attorneys and judges, so there's no scruples with them. And also, if you have a court-appointed attorney, you can't speak to the judge. The child protection system knows that. They want you to take a court-appointed attorney. They want you to fail because their goal is to have your child trafficking into foster care, trafficking into foster care, which is against the law, So when you call in, you're going to say, Bob Pace sent you. You tell the people in the office that you want to have a consultation with Mr. Davis. Now, a consultation is only 30 minutes for $60. It'd be the best dollar you ever spent. And it's really inexpensive. And he can show you how to navigate and how to fight the child protection system and get your children back. He has 35 years of experience of fighting CPS. He's a trial attorney. He also has done civil lawsuits against them for millions of dollars and won in both state and federal courts. So he's the real deal. He works out of Southern California, but he'll work anywhere when you talk to him about a retainer. And you have to understand, fighting CPS is like open heart surgery. You need a professional doctor. They're not cheap. And they're well trained, well knowledgeable. That's what you need is a family dependency lawyer, a juvenile family dependency lawyer. That's what the kind of lawyer you need. So the court appointed, I'm not saying don't use it, won't work. Also pro se, meaning you're going to fight yourself. One advantage is that there's nothing stopping you from talking to the judge or approaching the bench. But you do not know the laws, and the attorneys there do, and they are really bad attorneys. You forget that you have lots of attorneys present. You have lots of attorneys are present. You have the child's attorneys. You got 3 children, they'll each have separate attorneys. Then social workers, if they have 2 social workers, there'll be 2 social workers attorneys. And so, it's stacking up against you because you're going to be fighting all these attorneys that know the laws and know how to work in the court. And the judges are not very, very helpful. Judges actually work for child protection system. That's how they're paid. They are appointed judges, and this being election year, you need to pick the right kind of attorney that will represent you in dependency court. So make sure you go out and vote and pick an attorney that has pick a judge that has juvenile family dependency background. That's what you're in. That's what you're fighting. So Vincent Davis is available to represent you. He'll work in all the 50 states, and he does care about you. He has a podcast that you can listen. He's an easygoing person, but he will fight for you. I hired him. I had to. I was getting nowhere. I was getting nowhere. And I had to sell my home to do it. It was hard. I had to sell my home and um, get back my two of my three children that CPS took. So just like an open heart surgery, you need someone that is licensed and trained. You're not going to work on your heart by yourself, I don't think. I don't think you have a layperson to work on your heart, or a plumber, or a mechanic. So that's the first rule I have in this room. I have four of them. And I'll talk to them throughout the podcast when I talk more about CPS. Okay. I have lots of topics I can talk about. I'm waiting for anyone in this room that'd like to make a comment that I can respond to. There are people in this room. I'm also taking phone calls. You can call me at 626 698 0990. 626 698 0990. Now, another example of what a social worker is like is I have this social worker that had posted a Facebook ad. Her Facebook says that she's a social worker for Chicago, Illinois. But the ad that she posted was very tasteless. The ad came from an 1848 ad that was copied and posted, and it said black children for sale. Now, I can't use the right word because in those days they were called the N word. But it's a horrific ad. It wasn't changed or anything. It was 1848, and this was a black social worker that posted. So I have no idea what she was trying to do. Black children are not for sale. Black children are beautiful. And I think I don't understand why a lot of times people do the silliest things. But that's another example of a social worker in Chicago, Illinois. A third social worker was a man doing an investigation in San Bernardino County, California. And what he did is he went to the school to interview the girl that he was investigating for abuse. Now, by law, they're supposed to be notified by the school that your child is being talked to by a CPS worker. And you're invited to the school and sit in a room, but you're not with your child. But what this guy did, he asked the school he wanted to be alone with the girl of 13. The sad part is he was a pedophile working for the child protection system. And so he asked her to be, in a separate room. The school was so dumb they let him. Then he asked her to take her shirt off and expose herself naked, a 13-year-old child, in front of a older man who represent himself as an investigator for social services, San Bernardino County. Now, after that incident, the girl came home and was horrified. She told her mom about it, and it really disturbed her. that she had to be naked in front of a stranger. Where mom called the Child Protection Service of San Bernardino County and reported it, they investigated and he was fired. He was a pedophile. That's sad that a lot of the CPS systems have a pedophile working for them. So he was let go, but they didn't stop there because a friend of his who also worked at the CPS San Bernardino, a friend of his who'd been with him since childhood, set the mother up. He accused the mother, or the mother has been accused of molesting her son, who was where the investigation earlier started because there was accusations he was molesting his sister. He was 15 and she's 13. Anyway, the mother now is in the thing, and that was all because of retaliation. CPS does retaliate because that leads you into my example with my daughter. I had a young girl working as a social worker with no education, no background in social work, no license, in her early 20s, not even married, and handling our family to be unification. But during the trial, one of the trials that we had, there was an attempt by my wife's sister and her husband to adopt our daughter. She's very beautiful. She is well behaved. And so during the testifying, the social worker was on the stand. Our attorney cross-examined and asked the social worker, has there ever been any domestic violence in your home? I mean, my wife's sister and husband's home. And the social worker very proudly said, no, they're good parents, never any problems with domestic violence. Well, Mr. Davis had a bunch of paperwork and there were reports of domestic violences happening at that home, horrible domestic violences. So the social worker looked like mud on her face. She was proven wrong, and then she wanted to retaliate. So she told us parents, you'll never see your daughter again. What she did behind the scenes was she had my daughter. She told my daughter, you need to emancipate from your parents. You need to divorce your mom and dad. Further, you need to change your name and steal your birth certificate and be adopted into foster care. So that is another example of a social worker retaliating. That is horrible what she did. That's one of many things she did because my case lasted 3 years. It's still hard to talk about my case, even though it happened in 2015 to 2017. You know, that's 9 years ago. And it still hurts. It hurts so bad. Again, I'd like to remind everybody my phone number is 626-698-0990. And you can call in and talk about your case. Or if you still want, you can text it. I'm open to any kind of text messages from anybody. It may be a slow morning being Friday. I know it's 1 o'clock. It's 1 o'clock on the East Coast, actually 1:37. And then it's 12:37 on the Central. The Mountain, it's 11:37. And of course, Pacific, it's 10:30. Well, it's actually 10:32. Oh, I got confused here. I thought it was 7. Okay. It's 10:32 here on the West Coast. The Mountain Time is 11:32. Central Time is 12:32, and Eastern time is 1:32. And I know over in Europe it's 9 hours ahead of me. So, actually, yeah, Europe is 9 hours ahead. England is actually 8 hours ahead. And then South Australia is 6 hours behind me the next day. I have a lot of friends worldwide, and that's how I know the times where people are at. So now I'm going to slide into rule number 2. Rule number 2 is that it's the paperwork of things, and I was really bad about that. I put them on torn sheets of paper, envelopes, Post-it notes, my day runner, my phone. It was all over the place. The best way to handle your paperwork for your case is to use an 8.5 by 11-inch notebook with college rule notebook paper, and then divide it with dividers. Buy 10 subject tabs and put them in. Now, I know that day runners can do the same thing, but it's so small in print. It's really hard for me on the day runner. I've been using it for years. My phone's the same way. I use my calendar to put events and so forth. But and my computer is a lot better because it's bigger. But I find myself sometimes best with hard paper and a notebook and tabs and looking for your notes that way. Now, one of the important tabs is incidents. So if you know that there's the incident happening, you write it down. You start with the oldest first, and as you add each new one, then that becomes the next number and so forth. So on this incident, you put the date, the time, the location, and the people involved on the first line. On the next line, you put what the incident was about. The third line, you put the outcome of the incident. Now, you may not have the outcome for several months or several years, but you leave space and fill it in when you get it. Then skip a couple lines, put the next incident. Skip a couple lines, put the next incident. You're going to fill up that section with lots of incidents, and they will help you. They will help you. They will help you. Now, these incidents will be more important later on, a year or two after your case, because I try to tell you my case lasted 3 years. Technically, it lasted 8 years because I was investigated the first 5 years. But when they actually had my children and I was fighting them, it was 3 years. But this notebook, you can put in there your parenting classes, make a log in front, put the certificates in there, hole punch them. Then you can do the same thing with programs that you're taking, such as domestic violence, or you're taking anger management, or a drug rehab, whatever programs that they have. You just record the certification. And they don't do that. You just record the date and the time that you complete it. So you have incidents and you have parenting classes, and all the certificates can be hole punched and put in there. And you have programs, and they still have certificates too. Then you have something called info. Info is really important because that's where you write down phone numbers and things of all the people there. Then you can put your court papers next. You can hole punch them and arrange them in order of date and make a log of all your court papers. Logs are nice because you can look at the log or the index and locate something a lot more easier than thumbing through a lot of things. So imagine there's other tabs you can have for your case. That's what gives you the freedom to do that. But use a highlighter. Use a pink and yellow highlighter. That will help your case a lot. Also, highlighters come in handy. You can have yellow and pink highlighters, and those highlighters can be marked and it helps you see the information a lot quicker and so forth. So use that notebook. Look at it all the time. Take it with you. Um, you may have to fill out another notebook depending how long your case is. But that's a valuable tool. Now, I have rule number 3, which is something you should listen very attentively. You have a home, it's your castle, it's where your kids and your family live. And you have a right to not have people enter your home. There's 3 ways that people can get in your home. 1, with your permission, they can come in your home. 2, there's domestic violence going on, a physical altercation between the children, the husband, wife, maybe knives or guns are used, or maybe the child is being physical, beaten up. That is a second way that police and Department of Children system can come in there. CPS, Department of Children Protection System. They can come into the home if that's going on. And they will take your child. So don't do domestic violence at all with your spouse, with anybody. You don't want to fight there in front of your children or with your children at home. The child protection system has zero tolerance for anybody. They will abuse your child. They will harm your child. They will traffic your child into foster care. The third way is a warrant. A third way is a warrant. Now, that's a legal document that is signed by a judge with an embossed stamp on it, meaning the stamp is lifted on the paper. You can feel it. They'll have addressed to whoever the perpetrators are, the husband, wife, or the husband, or the wife, or the partner, or what it is. Then they will have their names on the form, what the allegations are, they'll list them, and what children involved. Further, they'll have the date and time that the people can come into your home. Just because they issue a warrant doesn't mean now. So when someone comes knocking at your door, it's best not to answer the door. I know you may have salespeople where it is. The reason why I'm saying that is too many people lately have been killed answering the door. On May 3rd, a black man named Roger, who was in the United States Air Force as an airman, answered his door and he shot 5 times by a sheriff from Gainesville, Florida. Why? They don't know that sheriff was removed 5 days later. And imagine there'd be a lawsuit against that sheriff. Because that man had no reason to be killed. That sheriff, if he trained properly, could have maybe said more clear instructions like, hello, this is the Gainesville, Florida Sheriff Department. We have reports of domestic violence going on. Are you alone? So that way he's trying to find out and try to talk. But what he did is he knocked several times, said nothing. Then he knocked again. Well, he had the wrong apartment, what the problem was. So when the black man came to the door, he opened it. He did have a gun at his side, but he had a license to carry a gun. And he was terminated right away. He was killed. 5 shots to the chest, point blank. He had a gun. It was drawn, but it was down at his side, pointing to the ground. What the police should have done, the sheriff should have done, is maybe approach from the side of the door jam, knock on it, identify, and try to diffuse the thing. He could have said, after he says, are you alone? And he says, yes. He said, well, I'd like you to lay down, face down, with your hands behind your head. If you have a weapon, please toss it aside so I can see it. So the answer is you go someplace and hide. Anybody that wants to see you, they got your phone number, they got your address, they can mail something, they can leave a message on your phone, or they can leave a business card, and then you could follow up. Now, if you're outside and you're approached by the police or the social workers, don't panic, but don't sit there and tell them your life story. Just say yes, no answers. Be polite to them. And if they ask to come in your home, you say no. You don't have to give them an explanation. They know the law. They know the law. But if any time it gets really testy, are you concerned, you can also say to the officer of the child protection, I need a timeout. I need to contact my attorney before we go any further. Please tell me your name or your badge number. Now, it's very important to get the badge number or CNID because social workers and police do lie. We are a lying society. Lies are addressed every day, every moment. We even have fake news. Oh, boy. So if you're outside, you can walk away after you say that you got the information. Now, another thing to be careful about is medical trafficking. What's happening lately is parents are taking their children to the hospital at urgent care or late hours or whatever because of something that can't wait to the next day. And now social workers are working in those hospitals, are taking children in. You don't have to give your child to the social worker. You don't need to talk to them. You just listen to what the doctor says. You be professional about it. If it's something that can wait till tomorrow, you see your pediatrician. And you do what they recommend to do. The doctor will say that. I'm talking about a medical doctor. I'm talking about a doctor that's going to see what's wrong with your child. Another form of medical trafficking is when you go to have a baby. Hi, Christina. When in Florida, it was May 3rd, this black man. It was Gainesville. Now, Christina is from New Mexico. She's also from San Bernardino, California, and Las Vegas, Nevada. Yes, it was a horrible shot. It was sad because he was on FaceTime with his girlfriend, and she saw everything on FaceTime. She saw him die in her arms. I mean, she was holding the phone and watching her boyfriend die, maybe a future husband or future children. But it was really sad. It was May 3rd. A 23-year-old airman for the United States Air Force was murdered. And it took a week for the Gainesville, Florida to fire that guy, and they never did. I mean, they probably will do a civil lawsuit against him. The mother in Alabama, he's from Alabama, got a good attorney, the same one that represented Floyd and several other of people that are innocently killed. So they got a good attorney. Now, Christina says, Georgia, Bob Gosh, the cops did the little Mondano horrible. She's doing 22 years. She was 14. Oh, wow. I don't know about that case. Can you tell me more about it, Christina? And try not to use the last name there. There's another case in Florida. Can you maybe call in or tell me about this case in Florida? That'd be really great. Because the one I heard is from Gainesville, and it was Roger. Well, it's okay. You can email me. I'm Bob P at VincentWDavis.com. I'm Bob P at VincentWDavis.com. I'll put my email in there. I put that in all the rooms. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 rooms linked up here. We have 8 rooms linked up here. So I went to each room as my email. Hmm. Hmm. Did you get it, Christina? You get my email? Well, I was trying to find something and I couldn't find for it. Christina, are you still there? Can you hear me okay, Christina? Okay, you sent it. Okay. I'll try to look it up right now. Nope. I'm still trying to find it. Oh, you have the wrong email address. Oh boy. Um boy. Maybe it's easier on my phone. Jeez. I've not seen it yet, Christina. Last one I have is Okay. I was checking my emails and I still haven't seen it, Christina. Okay, I'm looking for it. Hold on. I still haven't seen it, Christina. My podcast has got to end. It's now 11 o'clock. I've gone an hour. I want to thank all the people that have called in. Thank you, Christina from New Mexico. Stephanie Knox, can you call in tonight at 7 o'clock? If you fell in order to modify, you got to not do that. You have to be very careful, Stephanie Knox, if you're still in there. Somehow I missed your text in here. Stephanie, please call me back at 7 o'clock. That's Pacific Standard Time. And we can talk about it further, Stephanie. Thank you for calling in, Stephanie and Christina. This is Bob Pace saying, do not stop fighting for your kids. Good luck and God bless.